Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, and welcome to the Shatter Afters official podcast on HBO's The Last of Us, where we seek the art beyond the clickers. I'm Brandon Alvarado, and I'm joined by the awesome Robert Taylor. Hey, Rob, what's up, man?
Hi, Brandon. Not much. After taking last week off, I'm happy to be back with you talking about The Last of Us this week. I missed you last week.
Yes, but don't worry because we have a lot to talk about today. It's funny, as a recently, newly blue sky person. I kind of read a little bit about your little thoughts and ideas in regards to this episode. So I'm really interested in this conversation, how it's going to go as we dive into the episode and break it down the way we do here in Beyond the Clickers. As usual, for those that are joining us for the first time, welcome. We talk in general about the episode as we start into an overview. Then we talk about the things where the show expanded, diverged from the source material, and then we go deep on the things that stayed the same as we cover the entirety of episode 4, which is perfectly titled as Day 1. And now I do want to take a chance since you're here. Um, Rob, what were your thoughts of last week's episode?
I thought episode 3 was excellent. I actually probably slightly preferred that to episode 4 to episode 4 for reasons we'll get into later.
Okay.
I thought it was the decompression the show needed after Joel's death that you don't really get in the game because it's a game. We have to kind of move on to the next action sequence and the next
Yeah.
button clicking stuff.
Yep.
So there was a lot of stuff that, we as game players had never seen before in episode 3. And I really dug it. I thought it was a smart and interesting expansion of the story. So I was
Nice.
pretty into episode 3.
What was your favorite moment or favorite addition to the episode?
Probably the what do they call it? Their commission or their council. The scene where
Oh,
they
the
had to.
the the actual hall meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, okay,
Probably
yeah,
that.
cool, cool. I can feel Mike from Beyond in the producing chair going, Brandon, stop being Jake Peralta. Inside joke for those that cool. Okay, so but yeah, let's dive into it. Let's talk about episode 4, titled Day 1. Now, by the way, I strongly appreciate and enjoy the fact that we are getting hour-long episodes. We're getting 7 movies, pretty much. I love how dense they are. I love how every single scene, every single piece of dialogue, it's telling us something, bringing us something new in this world. And what a way to start the episode by in giving us an introduction to a character that is presented in the periphery, but whenever presented, he is presented as a force, whether for good or bad is up to debate, right? But he's presented as an external force that is operating within the world that is Seattle, because Seattle's like its own world and biosphere, right? Like, favorite line of the episode, what the is go wrong with Seattle, right? um, what a great way to introduce Isaac. I love that the first time we see him is in the past, and then the second time we see him, he is reintroduced as the current leader of the WLF, which is the group that, of course, at some point, Ellie and Dina will be facing head on, even though they have a little bit of a scruffle in this episode. How was that introduction to Isaac for you? Because I think it was great.
I mean, I thought it was fantastic, and we should probably start by crediting the great Jeffrey Wright, who is just. I mean, Jeffrey Wright is just magnetic and intense,
Yep.
and I
He
mean,
is doing so much
yeah,
with
I mean,
so little.
we've
Like,
just been watching this man for years, whether it's
yeah,
like that's Commissioner Gordon in the Batman, or back when he was doing the season of Boardwalk Empire. I mean, he's done so much amazing work over the
Yep.
years. I mean, he'll pop up in a James Bond movie for a little bit,
Yep.
but he has such a striking, commanding presence, and is
Yep.
such just a strong actor that it's great to see him work. And so, of course, he's reprising his role from the game.
Yep.
We've talked about this in past episodes, that it's been a little bit since I've played The Last of Us Part 2. I've actually replayed Part 1 more recently than I've played Part 2. And quite frankly, I don't have like a strong memory of Isaac in Part 2. Of course, I remember him. I know it's a character from the game. There are some images floating around in there, but as far as the game goes, you're so fixated on Abby and the structure, and I think Lev and Yara resonated more with me. I think there are characters in the game that resonated more with me than Isaac did.
Right.
So when you're putting him in the show, and I don't know if I stand alone there or not. I feel like that's maybe the case with others, and if it is, then it's the show's responsibility to remind you or reintroduce the fact that this is a compelling character who's going to play an important part of the story, and that they're going to do some cool things with maybe some stuff you've seen in the game, obviously some stuff we have not seen in the game. So as a reintroduction to a character who maybe hasn't entirely, stuck with me in the years since I've played the game, I thought it was super successful. I loved that first scene. It's so well done.
Yep. It's an expansion of the role.
Yeah.
And when you have a great performer like Jeffrey Wright, there's no reason why you wouldn't want to give him more material. And you're right. In the game, the character of Isaac, it's just another force that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
But he's not really presented as a character that requires exploration through different dimensions. It's not something that you're meant to explore or care about at that to that depth. I don't know if they're really going to apply that much depth to him, but I like how they're using him as a means for us to understand the group that he represents. The ideology, the idea of the ideologies and philosophies of the WLF, how they operate, how they see things, and why they see things the way they do. And I find it interesting that the first thing they tell us is that Isaac is a person that understands that Fedra has done the wrong thing by taking people's rights away. And I find it interesting that he is an intellectual person, but at the same time, he's a hyper focused person that he is so focused on what he believes is right. He doesn't allow anything else to influence him or to affect his line of thinking, which of course, I love how he betrays Fedra and saves the one person that wants to learn and understand. Because everybody else in that tanker is like brainwashed with the Fedra. They're drinking the Kool-Aid, and he sees it, which is why he literally says, "What do you know? You're thoughtless." But it was the one kid that asked the question that he said, "Okay, this person I can still influence. I can talk to him. I can probably see if he's willing to make a choice for his own, as opposed to just follow the herd." But then when you flash forward, he's kind of doing the same thing. And now the kid is the brainwashed one because he's just following Isaac. And it also it's another way of recontextualizing the idea of the cycle of violence. How sometimes you become the monster you're trying to destroy.
2 points you made, I'll follow up on. One, you're right that I think the Isaac in the game isn't necessary. He's more a cog in the story than someone that you're supposed to have like a rooting interest in or against or for. It's just more like he's basically a cog in the narrative, essentially. So so for the show, obviously they're going to try to humanize him a bit more. They're going to make him someone maybe we do have more of a rooting interest in or against. And based on some things we see in this episode, you could go one way or another depending on the scene, really.
Yep.
Um,
Because it
but
takes it to two extremes. Like,
yeah,
yep,
it's
yep,
like I mean, violence is involved on all times, but in one instance, it seems maybe morally justified, and on the other, maybe not so much. But it's tough to tell because we don't really know who the Wolves or the WLF is at this point. If you're only
yep.
watching the show, and we don't know who the Seraphites are at this point, if you're only watching the show, and that's the other point of yours I want to expand upon is that for this season to work, this season, the next season, however many seasons we're going to cover, are going to adapt The Last of Us Part 2 for this to work, we really need the WLF, the Wolves, and the Seraphites to be. The audience there needs to be some real world building going on here. You know what I
Yes,
mean,
yes,
Brandon? Like, we
yes,
need to understand how these groups operate, what their goals are, what their plans are, what they hope to achieve, how they were formed. And it's
yep,
sort of all world building to make these groups feel like real sort of lived in groups that are waging war on each other.
yep.
So by using Isaac, I think is a good way to get into sort of that battle and the tense, to say the least, relationship between those two groups.
Yeah, and it goes back to how dense these scenes are, because in these two particular scenes, we learn so much, because we learn not only that Isaac used to be part of Fedra, betrayed them. We know that Hanrahan which is this new character that we don't that it's original to the show by the looks of it, is a leader of the WLF, which is the one that introduces Isaac into the fold.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it is we kind of have an idea that it's not the war, or at least what we know about the war between the Seraphites and the WLF, is that it's a war for power and territory.
Yeah,
Because
and ideology.
ideology, right? And,
Yeah.
and the idea that there was a truce in place, and
Mhm.
the only reason you make a truce is because people are killing each other over something.
Yeah.
And then they broke the truce, but now Isaac doesn't care who broke the truce or not. He just wants to stop the scars of the Seraphites. We also find out that the Seraphites are divided amongst themselves as well, because you have those that don't want to go into war blindly, which are the ones that we find as we enter Seattle at the end of episode 3, that are massacred by the WLF. But then we have the other ones that are fanatical and that retaliate against these attacks in the way that we see in the TV station. And they use their enemies' bloods to send a message and be all operatic about it. So I love how, like you said, they're doing this world building so that we understand that there is all these elements of violence, of chaos, and danger that the characters that we care about are in the middle of.
Right, because I mean, Ellie is walking willingly into the middle of this. And at the moment, she's our viewpoint character. At the moment. So, you're gonna, I mean, we're a little bit ahead of her on knowledge on this stuff, but the audience is going to be learning sort of about these groups at the same time she is, to
Right.
some degree.
So I'm glad that we get a little bit of that, a little bit of this.
Yeah.
But no, those scenes were great. I love the episode. I love the use of the horde, which it's directly from the game. I love how the TV station was almost identical to the game.
Yeah.
I love that when we got to the movie theater, it wasn't like, oh look, it's a place. Oh no, it's the theater. Like, like you feel you're in the place, right?
Yeah.
Um, I love that the music store was the music store. Like the fact that they literally built that from the ground up to
It,
be the music
the
store.
music store and the theater, I mean, I'm sure they're not identical, but they just
You can't
from, yeah,
tell.
right. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
it's so at a minimum, it's identical to how those things exist in my memory. It's like,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
that's the music
100%.
store from the game, and that is the
Yep.
theater from the game. And I watch with my 15-year-old daughter, and we joke, and it's like they go to theater. I'm like, I know that theater, and it's just, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
No, and the cool thing is that when she sets the guitar after playing the song, right? When she sets the guitar, you kind of see that shot of the guitar and the light. It's kind of, I think, the same shot in the game
yeah,
when you walk away. Like those are the little details that bring a smile to my face.
sure.
But
And I don't think they make or break the show, but as
oh,
fans
not
of
at all.
there's just fans of the game, it's fun and cool to see.
Yes, 100%. But a lot happens in this episode. So we have the introduction of Isaac. We have an introduction of this second band of Seraphites because the Seraphite that we see is being tortured is it's nowhere near the same Seraphite we met at the end of episode 3. These are two different types of believers, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the Isaac, like I like how the passage of time changes people and how different viewpoints are presented. Um, I love what happens with Ellie and Dina's relationship in this episode. Um, and I think it's one of the highlights of the episode. We were all waiting for it. I'm very interested in your thoughts on how they handled um, this side of the relationship. Um, so as we go through our overview, I think that's where I want to start actually. We have been walking around it, right? Like we know that there's something that is supposed to happen. We are expecting something, and a lot of us were questioning, especially in episode 3, we're like, are they going to get them together? Because we know from the game, in the game, this happened in the beginning, like
Yeah.
even before Joel's demise, and it happened here, and how we got there. What were your thoughts, Robert?
My thoughts are that it's good, but it feels a little rushed to me in the show because they delayed the start of their relationship. Because we are watching two characters kind of fall in love in the show, whereas in the game they're already in love. Like you said, this stuff happens earlier. Because we're watching this new relationship blossom, there's some good things that come out of that. Like just seeing Dina look at her as she's singing Take On Me and playing the guitar and like literally like falling in love with her in front of her eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. But when we get to where we find out that Dina's pregnant and Ellie's talking about being a dad and them starting a family together, it does get a little bit like, didn't you guys just like hook up for the first time? Like it starts moving really fast. And as a game player who's expecting and wanting this stuff to happen, it still works. If you're trying to sort of take that part of your brain away and just look at it from the viewpoint of someone watching the show, and I did talk to at least one friend who felt this way, it seems like, you know, they were withholding on their relationship, and now that it exists, it goes from 0 to 100 in one scene where a lot happens. And so to me, it was a little janky, and I could see having some pacing concerns, and I could see just having some concerns. That doesn't make sense that these two are just now hooking up and are already fully committed to starting a family together. And so I don't think it works quite as smoothly as I don't think that scene works quite as smoothly as it does in the game, even though it's clear there are other good reasons for structuring it this way in the show. Like I said, there is a lot of power in literally sort of watching them fall in love in real time. There's something good that comes out of that. but then it costs you in some of these other areas, if that makes any sense. And I hope it does.
So it's interesting that you say that, because when I first saw it, it did feel a little janky to me. I'm not gonna lie, it did. Um, as I thought it over in the last couple of days, I listened to the podcast. I thought it over. One of the things that I find interesting, though, which it kind of goes back to the conversation that they have, and the interesting thing is that Ellie questions what we're questioning right now. Like everything that you just said, Ellie is questioning. Why now? Because Ellie has been already there for the longest time. She just thought it was never going to happen because Dina's not into it, right? Dina's not interested in that fashion. But Ellie's been there. Like Ellie's
It's
been
true.
whatever. Whenever, if Dina even like that moment where Dina kissed Ellie, as soon as she's first surprised, and then she just dives in, and goes into it until they're interrupted by Seth. Hi, Seth. Um, but but I think to a degree it is kind of justified because Dina wasn't there yet in allowing herself to be free to feel that way. And this is something that I thought about too that I didn't think about, that we take for granted in 2025. As they're walking through Seattle and they see all the pride flags, they don't know what that means.
Love that little bit.
They don't know.
Like they really liked rainbows or whatever the dialogue is.
Right.
It's really funny.
Correct. And it's interesting how a cataclysm can destroy progress in different ways, right? And I like how they tie that to Dina's struggle, because Dina was scared to be able to accept that part of herself that was shunned from very early on, right? So
Right.
I like how
Dina might not even know what like being bisexual is. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just the way that
it's not a thing.
Right. I mean, we've had an apocalypse. Nobody
Right.
leads a normal life. No one has normal friends, really. You know what I mean? At least at the start, at least it's sort of the era we see in season 1. So it's like, I mean, coming to grips with that stuff and finding yourself is confusing, like in real life anyway. Yep. Doing it during an apocalypse when you don't have the help and the resources and the materials, and sure.
Right. And it's one of those things where what I enjoy about it is the fact that it's not the one thing that held her back. Yeah. She's able to say all these things that held her back. And it wasn't until she understood that there's a possibility I'm losing everything. And then that kind of justifies the steamroll and the avalanche of everything that occurs after and where they're at now. So I think it's interesting. I think this is the first time in the show that I felt that knowing what happens hindered my experience of it, because it's so drastically different how they present it, that if I didn't know the game, I may not have felt the jankiness that I felt because I knew. Because to me, as soon as she says I'm pregnant, I'm going, oh, so we're gonna know now. And then the other thing happens, and the other thing happens. But if I didn't have all the context and the knowledge that I know that I had, I may have not felt that way.
I have a question for you guys, right quick, if you don't mind.
Oh, there's a floating voice.
Yeah, I'm stuck in the void. If you know, you know. My question for you about this scene, because it did not work for me at all this episode, and one of the reasons is because we delayed things so long. It's just really strange that we're doing like this coming of age like love story on a revenge mission to go find Joel's killers. Like that's the thing where it's like the context, everything you guys said, I agree with. I get it. But in that case, I feel like we should have just committed to the bit and rewrote all of this to be in episodes 1, 2, 3, and then kill Joel in episodes 4 or 5. to make it work a little bit better, because like it's just really weird that Ellie is falling in love and planning a life with Dina when in the game, again, gamer knowledge, she's like hell-bent to find Joel's killer. And that's like the one-track mindset she has. And so how does this work for you guys in that context?
I was literally about to go here next. So I don't necessarily disagree with this. And I have also seen this complaint floating around online that in the game, all this stuff happens in the game, but it never supersedes Ellie's mission of revenge, which is always, despite all this other stuff, despite having her girlfriend and being in love and finding out she's pregnant and whatever is going on with Tommy and all these other things that are happening, nothing ever supersedes finding Abby, ever. To the point where you can even read the video game that like she's happy about the pregnancy, but it's also one more thing that maybe gets in the way and makes finding Abby more complicated. And that stuff is largely jettisoned in this episode. You don't feel much, especially during those theater scenes, that Joel is still on Ellie's mind, that Abby is still on Ellie's mind. She seems fully invested in what's going on with her and Dina in the moment and what's happening to them. And hey, we're hooking up and we're in love and she's having a baby. And it seems like the mission is pushed out of the picture, if only momentarily. Whereas in the game, I don't think the mission is ever pushed out of the picture. And I saw some people talking about that online. Mike's not the first person I've heard mention it. It's more of a nitpick for me than a problem. I don't really consider anything that we're talking about right now to be a gigantic error or a problem. They're coming across more as hiccups or nitpicks to me, but season 1 did not have hiccups and nitpicks. Season 1 is a perfect season of television, and any change that they made from the game, I understand completely why it was made. I'm fully on board with, yes, of course you have to do it this way as we're adapting to episodic television. There are some things in these in this episode, these things we're talking about, that's like, I'm not convinced we had to do it this way, folks. And, maybe once we see these next 3 episodes, my opinion will change on that. But I think Mike makes a good point. Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like what they did was, because I think some of the dialogue and some of the stuff, and definitely the hooking up, came from the scene in the game where they're in like the weed house and the pot house, right? Like some of that stuff is from that scene, which happens earlier in the story. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong.
The only thing that happens in the 7-Eleven weed factory is the hooking up.
Okay.
None of these conversations.
Okay.
Because Dina still learns that Ellie is immune in day 1 of Seattle.
Okay. Yeah.
So everything, Dina, that's when you find out Dina. So the only thing that they added to this is the hooking up. That's the only thing they added.
So it's the advancement of their relationship, basically.
Correct.
That schedule.
It is
although that's a big part. So
it is. It is. But I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that Ellie completely disconnects from why she's there, because if that were the case, her first thing would be, this place is crazy. Look at all these explosions. Let's go back. But no, her first thing is, that's where we need to go. Are you staying? I think you should stay. So She is not telling you in any way, shape, or form that nothing has changed the mission. This is not a paradigm that's going to shift what she wants to do. If anything, she wants to keep Dina away from the danger, which is going to end up isolating more how she handles the mission, which is part of what happens in the original story. And I think now, because now the height of the relationship is here, I wonder if that's going to be a tool to drive how the relationship develops as her obsession continues to develop or take a toll.
Yeah, like you're not wrong. and we'll see how it develops over the next few episodes.
We will see.
These small complaints I have could be made even smaller based on how things unfold.
Yeah.
But yeah, just for the first time, a couple of little glitches in the adaptation process there where I'm like, I will say the change in how Dina finds out Ellie is immune is delightful, and actually
Yes.
I maybe better in the show. It's certainly more intense and sort of ratcheted up from sort of an actiony standpoint and how it unfolds. And so even though that was a big change, I don't know if you want to explain to watchers about how, or watchers or listeners, how it goes down in the game, but it's a pretty big change, even though the end result is the same. And I really liked what they did in the show.
So one of the things that we've talked about ad nauseum is that there's such a thing called spores in the game. And what happens in the game is that Dina's mask breaks as they're getting close to an area that's filled with spores. So Ellie takes off her mask and gives it to Dina. And when Dina sees that Ellie's just inhaling these spores and nothing's happening, then
which is very cool in the game and works for the game.
But there's no spores in the show that we know of. So the idea that she just puts her arm out there makes it so much personal. She literally took a bullet for Dina. That's literally exactly what happened.
Using her flesh as a shield.
Right. And that is so Ellie. That is so Ellie. And I like the idea, and I was listening to the Last of Us podcast, and one of the things that they talk about is that Ellie goes back to what Joel and Tess did. She literally tells Dina, hey, I'm going to sit in the corner over here. And if you see me as even twitch, just shoot me. So she goes back to what worked. And that's what she did with Dina. And that type of tension you cannot build unless you have the bite. So I love how the lack of material and keeping things within what we know of the world so far forced them to go in this direction. And I think it works very, very well.
Yeah.
And I think it also contributes to the development of the relationship in the way that it avalanches in the scenes that follow.
That is a change more like what I was used to in season 1, where it's like this is a change that happened and I completely understand why they did it. It makes total sense. This is great. And you move on to the next thing. Yeah. That's what I'm used to with the show, typically.
Now, moving on from Dina and Ellie a little bit. I love the expansion of the torture scene with Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we first meet Isaac in the game, he is torturing a Seraphite. Mm-hmm. But we don't see, there's no conversation. There's nothing. We have this villain monologue delivered with such grace. Sponsored by William Sonoma, by the way. By Isaac. And what a powerful performance between these two performers. I don't know who played the Seraphite, but both of them.
It's interesting because it's kind of like what we talked about. Like when we first meet Isaac at the beginning of this episode, he is killing a truckload full of Fedra soldiers, but he seems righteous in doing so. Like, he's standing up for his people and the little man and against the tyranny of Fedra. So it almost, even though he's murdering people when we first meet him, it almost positions you where you're on Isaac's side in that scene, I think.
Yep.
And then when we next catch up with him, and also to this point, we're not sure about the Seraphites. They seem a little odd. They seem to have a little bit of a cultish belief system.
a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. We're not sure, but still, the despite all that, the stark imagery of this beaten, fully naked man on a floor, chained to a wall, just broken, helpless, exposed to the world, and Isaac is just clearly has been wailing on him and is going to wail on him some more. And it's just like, this maybe a lot's happened to Isaac, and maybe this isn't someone whose corner we're going to be in. And that's one of the things The Last of Us in both forms is absolutely the best at. It's its greatest strength is it all of its characters, they're shades of gray, man. Like no one is really fully good or fully bad. It's just what are you going to do in the awful circumstances you find yourself in? And so it's like I said, it's two scenes of violence, but a very, very different sort of tone and what the audience is expected to get from it in the scene with the Seraphite being tortured.
This is not the first time, and it's
Yeah.
this is not the first time that he's given the William Sonoma speech.
Yeah.
Like this is what he does, right? But I'm like I am gonna say I love how the comeback of the Seraphite towards the end of that interaction, when he literally says, "You're gonna lose," and he goes, "Because every day one of your wolves joins us, but none of us ever leave to become a wolf," and that's like
it's compelling.
And when he puts the hand, like even before he just puts the hand on, like, you can do whatever you want to me, you're just not gonna get anything out. And Isaac understands how big of an ideological threat this is, and how these ideas are literally what's gonna win the war. Like he understands it, how dangerous it is, because it's what's won him. Because that's what won him over to the WLF. Ideas,
and also there's the fact that at that point, Isaac just ends it, and it's it's very clear that Isaac's not into torturing these guys for. He's not in it for kicks. He's not in it because he enjoys it. He's not. This isn't like that. Would be more like something you see on The Walking Dead, where everyone is, so many of the villains on that show or the characters in that show have sadistic tendencies or are getting off on the violence. That's not what's going on here. I mean, this is a strategic move for Isaac, desperately trying to save and protect his people. And once he knows he's not going to get the information from that Seraphite, once he knows he's not getting that info, he just ends it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make it, any less severe.
Right.
It doesn't really get us in Isaac's corner. He still is doing some awful, awful things here. But it comes down to belief systems. These two people have belief systems that are incompatible.
Yep.
Good scene.
Yeah, great scene. One of the best, I think, of the season so far. I would say it's one of the best scenes of the season. Because it really, not only do we learn so much of these two factions, we just see them as two unstoppable forces that Ellie's going to have to encounter at some point and deal with. So I'm excited. As we talk about things that stayed, things that remained in the game, in the show, I think it's safe to say almost 80% of this episode is straight from the game.
Yeah, it's like an inverse from last week, where
most of it was brand new, right? Apart from the expansion that we get from the Seraphites, the Isaac, most of it, it's pretty much how day one goes.
Yeah.
I love the fact that it was titled Day One. And for those that don't know, in the game, it's funny because I missed this from season one. Because in season one, what I missed was in the game, as particular turns in the story occur, you're going through the seasons, and they mark the different staples of a new chapter in the story: summer, spring, winter, fall. And I kind of missed that in season one. Like I wanted those things, and part two does the same thing, but because of the structure of the storytelling and the viewpoints of the characters that we're following, it all happens in the same place during the same time, but in different areas. So it was Seattle day one, Seattle day two, and they did it in this episode.
I know we don't want to get too spoilery and get ahead of the viewers, but the fact that they did do the day one, and the fact that for people who've played the games, we know what we're seeing and we know what we're not seeing.
Yeah.
And it starts to look like the show is going to be structured like the game is, which means, if that means what I think it means, like they're going to take some of the biggest swings in TV history come season 3. If that's what's happening, which I don't think we can say for sure yet, but
remember the conversation we had of how I think they were going to structure it?
this,
I am. It looks like they're doing it, and I'm like, if they really do this is going to be interesting.
I mean, it's just a fact. I mean, there are already people that can't believe that season 2 of the show killed off Joel and killed off its lead character and killed off its biggest star, and thought, wow, what a ballsy thing for the show to do. And I'm just sitting here thinking,
you have no idea.
If they do in season 3 what it looks like they might be doing in season 3, you have no idea. Like, and I guess we'll see, but it is starting to look that way, Brandon. So yeah, I was excited to see the day one. I think it's cool they're structuring it that way, but then part of me is like, this ain't everything that happens. This ain't everything that happens in day one. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because in the teasers, we've seen more of Abby, but we haven't seen anything of Abby in the last 2 episodes.
Nope.
Which kind of solidifies what we discussed even off the air.
We're being vague about, what we're trying to be as vague as possible about.
I promise.
We're protecting the people.
Don't question the duck. But I like the fact how closely they went to the game. I love that for the show, Take On Me wasn't an option, because in the game it's an option.
You can miss it.
You can miss it. You cannot. But here, you know what they're telling us? They're doing the thing that most authors do. They're made a canon. The Take On Me is canon.
I made it about 30 seconds into the song, and then I was just like, fuck this show, because I'm bawling so hard. I mean, just tears are pouring down my face.
With Dina.
I'm like, God damn you, Druckmann, why do you keep doing this to me? But oh my God, it's probably my favorite scene in the game.
Yeah.
For whatever, I'm an 80s kid and I play guitar and I'm a big music guy, and I love when shows or games or movies I like use music to that effect, and it's probably my favorite scene in the game. I kind of assumed the whole time it would be in the show, but we never knew for sure. They could have even, I believe in one of the trailer we saw a shot with her with the guitar, but like they could have changed the song. You don't know. And
they kept
just to see it. And Bella did well. Like she, I believe that was her singing. I haven't seen anyone say it.
No, that was her.
Yeah,
that was her playing and singing it.
So I had no idea, just from a musical standpoint, if she'd be able to pull that off. And it's like, nope, that's my Ellie.
No, that's why the series was delayed 2 years. She was learning.
Learning to play guitar. I have a quick story for you guys. So I was at karaoke with some friends, and one of the songs we landed on doing was Take On Me.
Yeah, and good luck with those high notes, Mike. But I'm
bawling my eyes out.
Yeah.
With Take On Me. I'm like, nope. And everybody's like, what's wrong with you, dude? I'm like, oh, nobody else cries when they hear Take On Me. Is this just a me thing? Oh, The Last of Us ruined the song for me. It finally clicked. I'm like,
I cried. They used the original Aha version in one of like the trailers for season 1, and I was just like, you fuckers. Like,
that's another moment where it's like, oh, I have a weird emotional reaction to this 80s song that nobody else quite understood at the time. I think they get it now, thankfully. But, yeah, that was awkward.
Amazing scene. Bella's singing and playing was amazing. And Isabella Merced, did I pronounce her name properly?
Yes,
like her reaction shots and just the look she's given. And I'm just bawling, and I'm like, all of this is fucking perfect. Because
so there's a little bit of the magic of how the relationship develops that I truly love, and I love in the show that I didn't get in the game, and because of the distance, I enjoyed it more now. And here's this: Ellie is a very closed character in the sense that she has huge walls for everybody. She is never herself with anyone except Joel and maybe Dina, but no one really connects with Ellie in a way where she feels 100% herself. And one of the things that I think was magic is that when she talks about Apollo 1 in the tank, that line of dialogue, and she's geeking out about the fact that she's talking about these astronauts. Ellie wouldn't allow herself to geek out in front of anybody else.
Yeah.
That's how close she sees herself with Dina. And that's a moment of levity that of how dark and violent and angry Ellie can be. Dina is able to see this. And that moment of her playing that song and you seeing how much she sees it as therapy because it brings her closer to Joel. That conversation that they have, yes, these are all the lessons Joel taught me. And you see her face. Like Dina is able to see inside this violent young woman is this beautiful light and love for this other person. And we don't, and that kind of crystallizes how Dina is able to appreciate even more and surrender her more self to Ellie, because she's able to see these other sides of Ellie that nobody else except Joel probably knows about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I think I said it earlier, but the changing on how their relationship evolves, for me, maybe it hurts the theater scene a little bit, but it helps take on me. It helps the
Yes.
record store scene.
Yep.
So
It
you
helps the
win,
record.
you win some, you lose some. But
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. It's one of those things like they went for it, and I appreciate that they went for their version. But I love, and this is one of those things like I've always thought that people get upset when they ruin stuff, and that is not that. They made decisions, and if you don't like it, you still can go back to the game and just say that that's the version that you prefer.
Let's be clear, nothing here has been ruined. This is
Correct.
Yeah, all right.
But a lot of times that's the conversation that people have, right? The people automatically go to the extreme, and so far I'm glad that that's not what happened here. That's not what has happened here.
And if you're not a game player, but you're watching the show and now you're listening to us, but you are going to go play the game, for God's sake, walk upstairs in the record store. Don't leave Seattle day one until you find it.
Yes.
But,
Do the thing. You
Yeah.
need to just do the thing, Julie. Now
I understood that reference.
Okay, Captain America. I do love the line, what the fuck is wrong with Seattle? I think that's in the game too, right? Like
I'm not
Dina,
sure.
I think so. I have a feeling.
I laughed. It's funny.
It was hilarious. Dina just being Dina is. It doesn't matter how dark the bodies are just hanging. Dina is the perfect. I want Dina to be the commentary to everything in my life.
Dina is
because
amazing.
I'm just gonna
in the
laugh.
show. She's
Yes,
amazing.
Isabella Merced is
Yeah.
a gem. I love the horde. I love the fact that they tried to capture, because we kind of have the same moment in the game.
Mhm.
The way they captured it, but within the world of the show. Again, Fungal Network. I love those little attention to details. The guy just walking, and then the camera just zooms in into the little fungal tendrils, and then here comes, say, the clickers.
Yeah,
It
it's
was great.
cool. They'll take like, locations that you explore significantly in the game and sort of boil them down to like single action sequences, but they're really well done.
And I don't know if I don't remember if I said this on the air or off the air last time, but I was talking to Mike, and did you notice that Dina doing the count is kind of a reference to the hearing in the game?
Yeah.
That right there, bro. Every time I see it, I just go like, yes, just do the thing.
Dina's been, a matter of fact, I want to change my answer. When you asked me at the top of the show what I liked best about the previous episode where I was not on this show and I answered the town hall, I actually think my favorite scene is when Dina shows up at Ellie's house and you know, she's like, all right, I lied to you. I'm not lying now. Here's everything I know. And just sort of the interactions to them
The
as
box of
they're,
cookies.
yeah, as
Like,
they're,
I'm trying to buy
yeah.
your patience and
Uh,
just your forgiveness.
just great peeks at their relationship. Great work
Yeah.
by those two actors. And I think those were my favorite bits from last week's episode. So I hope I didn't get to talk about them. I hope you guys talked about them on the show.
I'm looking forward to, and also of course the theater, which in the game, and hopefully, if the story so far, you know what? I gotta stop saying it. They're doing exactly the story the way it plays out. They're just pretty much. So in the
I'm
game,
not ready to fully commit yet, Brendan, but it's looking that way.
more or
Go
less,
on. Yeah.
more or less. But the theater kind of becomes their base of operations
Yep.
in the game. So I do hope that this is a recurrent location, especially as the days proceed.
Well, it should be.
Yeah, right. They're already there. There's no reason to go somewhere else.
I was trying to remember because at the end of the episode, Dina leaves the theater with her, and I guess that does happen at least at that point in that game in the game. Some that
Yes,
Dina's heading out.
I know.
with her.
I know. It gets to a point. At some point, it gets to a point where Ellie goes solo.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But at least they already teased the fact that that is a consideration that Ellie is taking very seriously.
Yeah.
Like we got to take care of the baby because she's gonna be a dad.
Hmm.
Oh, also, Mike, come back from the void.
We summon Mike from the void.
Wait,
A hug from Florence
Hubba,
Pugh will do
hubba, 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 hubba. No.
it.
That's how you guys summon around here? Wow.
I am
Double, double,
here. Watashi ga kita. What's up?
You did not like I'm gonna be a dad. I want to know why.
That's a take. Ooh, that's a hot take.
It's
I
a
need to know
funny
why.
line. Don't get me wrong. The delivery is perfect. It's Ellie from season 1. And that's what bothers me. It is 1000% something Ellie would say in season 1 to Joel, right? And again, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. It feels like the writers didn't quite age Ellie up. There's the whole controversy of Bella Ramsey shouldn't be playing Ellie in The Last of Us 2. I'm not getting into that nonsense. I think Bella Ramsey is phenomenal in the age range, so it's perfectly fine. But I feel like the writing for Ellie as a character hasn't progressed well enough for me, especially in that moment. So in the game, right, when she finds out Dina is pregnant, Ellie like panics and freaks out and is like, hey, you shouldn't be here. I need to send you back. We could have turned around. You're a burden, blah, blah, blah. And like Robert was saying before, Ellie's so like zoned in on I have to find Abby. She's irrational and she kind of like snaps at Dina about it. Here, we're leaning into these two are in love. They just had sex for the first time. Oh my God. And it's like, in a vacuum, I'm fine with that. But at this point in the story, that doesn't feel like a reaction Ellie would have when she's trying to find Joel's killer. You know, like, and the reason I bring up it sounds like Ellie from season 1 is because she was like the witty jokester being brought on missions with dad. And this season, she is laser focused on getting this job done, getting revenge for her father figure. And I feel like all of that is just being lost a little bit. We keep talking about The Last of Us being a story, The Last of Us 2 specifically, being about the cycle of hatred. And we have not seen that hatred in a long time. And this goes back to the previous episode where I think we're just taking too long. Like the episode 3 is fine. And we talked about it. There are things I like about it, but it's like, I think we sat around too long. Weeks have passed. Now we're on like a romance trip with Dina. And it's like, the whole point is to go kill Abby. And I feel like a lot of that emotion is being lost in this adaptation. So when we punctuate one of these moments with a quip, it just is like, oh, okay, I don't like how this is going. And I again, in a vacuum, all these changes don't bother me. But when we get to the season finale, right, when Abby returns to the story, can you sell that level of hatred and disdain and anger when we've had a whole love story since Joel died?
I will say I liked the line just because I thought it was funny and expertly delivered. But I will also
Oh
say
yeah, that was great.
but
I will say.
it's difficult to refute Mike's points. I think we'll see how next week goes. I think we're gonna get a lot of that anger next week. And we'll see. We'll see where this season ends, which I don't know where the season ends. I don't know if either of you do, but I think it largely
we have another 3 episodes, which
yeah,
is a lot.
I have some speculations on where the season ends, but I don't. There are a couple things I know that I was told, but where the season ends is not one of them. So we'll kind of see how that unfolds.
Yeah. Again, it's all of these minor nitpicks that you guys have talked about this entire episode, right? I admit they are minor nitpicks, but they just keep stacking on top of each other as the weeks go on. And we keep saying, we'll see how it goes. And it's like, eventually this has to stop like happening.
What it does is it makes it a very good television show instead of a great one. And I think that's maybe what's happening this season.
Yeah. Like we're getting to the point where all of these changes they're making every episode for me like a 7 out of 10. Whereas last season, every episode was like a 9 or a 10 out of 10. And that's basically where we are. Good, not great. Perfectly said.
I also have concerns, and I'm sure we're going to discuss this stuff in a post-mortem if we're going to do a spoiler post-mortem or whatever. But, we've vaguely alluded to the structure, and part of the reason why the game works so well is because you can play it from start to finish as quickly as you are able, even though it's a long game, and look at it from one piece. And it works so well because of the way that structure is and the way all those components fit together all the way to the ending. The fact that we're going to have to stop this story in 3 episodes and wait 2 years again, I have a lot of concerns about if the power of this story is going to be diluted because it's going to be segmented in multiple seasons of a TV show. I have a lot of concerns about that.
I think that's why these choices are being made too, though, right? Because it's like The Last of Us Part 2 is such a go type of story.
Yeah.
And we have to plan for a 2-year intermission. And so I don't fault them for that, but it's also like in the middle of the season, you lose stakes. Like, it's just really weird to me that Joel was murdered and Tommy's at a baseball game. And I know the context of that scene is important, but like knowing
he was chatting with Gail,
and time passed in the show too, right? Like
like 2 weeks,
3 months,
2 weeks,
3 weeks.
Yeah, but like it's just very strange. It's like the main character of your show is killed, and we're at a baseball game, and it's like that to me is just that's where the pacing comes in. That's why the Dina Ellie relationship isn't working for me, because since it happened in the game before Joel died, I'm cool with that. But once Joel dies, that changes the entire mindset of these characters. But Brandon, I know you've been sitting for a while, so refute me. Go.
Oh, no. I mean, everything you've said is warranted. I feel that a lot of it goes back to, I think this is where we're starting to see how having prior knowledge will undoubtedly affect how we enjoy, good or bad, right? And at least for me, when it comes to that phrase, I'm gonna be a dad. The reason I enjoy it is it goes back to the idea that Ellie wouldn't say that in front of Jesse or in front of Tommy or in front of another one of the guys. He'll say it in a room quietly with Dina, though, because Ellie's able to be that way with Dina. Ellie's able to have that type of conversation with Dina. So I think saying that she is simply improperly written, like she hasn't evolved in that way, I would say she has found the other person that she can be open with, like she was with Joel. Even though with Dina is an even more intimate way, a more profound way, because of the type of connection.
But I guess my point is Ellie is 19 now, not 14. And
Mhm.
even though 19-year-olds are still very immature, there's also time and place where it's like, again, I don't think Ellie would be thinking of a quip in the Last of Us video game. That's my point of like, and I get what you mean by prior knowledge.
But think about this. Every 5 seconds, when Dina says something snarky, her response is a teenage response. Dick, like she does that,
Right.
and
I
it,
get I get
and it's
that, but
just
again,
she,
it all comes down to tone, and the show I think is just
fair.
losing that. There's too much levity in this story. The Last of Us 2 does not need that much levity.
Well, that being said, though,
That's
there's a lot of levity now, because if you remember, beyond this moment, levity's out the window. Like there's no time.
Yeah, and I get that, but that's why it's like, again, this is a revenge story, and teenage romance just feels weird being thrown in the middle of it. That's all. That's really
Fair.
all it is.
And
The scenes themselves are fine.
It's fair.
The actresses are doing great. I don't have a problem with the line, I'm going to be a dead. That's very Ellie to say, but Ellie should have that conversation before Joel's death. Everything after Joel's death, that's where it's like, I don't think she would make that statement right now, because she only cares about this one thing. And that's the point, is that she only cares about this one thing. And it leads her down a path of no return. That's kind of like the point of the story. So if we keep having these moments of levity or these classic Ellie quips, or we haven't seen Abby for like 3 or 4 episodes, I feel like the story is just losing its punch. And that's what Robert was kind of saying before, of like taking that 2-year-long break, right?
Will it dilute everything?
Yeah, it's just the pacing of it is weird, and I think it's losing its punch a little bit there.
There's also the matter of, for sort of the overarching themes of the game to work, you have to go down this long, dark road with Ellie, which in the game you do, and it's hours and hours and hours, and it's
almost too much if we're being
but it needs to be for it to work. And obviously they can't do that in the show. I mean, just from the start, you're not going to be able to replicate playing as this character and living inside this character for 10 hours or whatever. You're going to have to find ways to abbreviate that, which fine, but it's going to be, we're just now next week maybe getting started on that long, dark road. And there are only 3 episodes left this year.
Well, but keep in mind that everything you guys are saying it's 100% valid. Like, it's not about right or wrong or anything like that. For me,
of course, nobody's right or wrong unless it's me.
That's why you're just devoid. You lost in the last battle. You lost your body, so now you're just a voice. So you're, I kind of like the idea of us getting these moments now, taking the time to enjoy the character now, because it's gonna make the shifts that much more dramatic, and that does work for television. And that's kind of what I like. If the shifts occur as sharp and detailed and gritty as they normally would in the next couple of episodes, it may pay off. Because remember, it's not just about what happens in Seattle. I promise I won't spoil. It's not just about what happens in Seattle. It's about what happens because of Seattle, and then what happens after. So we're at the very beginning of whatever this direction is going to be. Maybe we're just stacking up all the good that she's going to have to choose over.
That's where we differ a little bit, though, because once Joel dies, there is no good, in my opinion. Because, again, you just killed the main character of your story. It's weird that we still have moments of good.
Okay.
That's it.
I am going to take Brandon's side here, because the game sets a clear alternative path for Ellie that maybe we wish she would take. You know what I mean?
Which has to do with what happened in this episode.
Right. The game sets a very clear, like, Ellie could make different choices that would radically change her life and how she's living it and her existence. And a big part of the game is then her not making those choices because she's too far down this dark path I keep talking about.
Right.
So I will disagree that I think it's okay to show what that other path that we know Ellie is not going to go down could be.
But okay. And I hear both of you. But shouldn't we also set up that Ellie's not going to go down that path? And that's the thing.
Yes,
her making
I
Google eyes
agree.
at
Well,
Dina makes it feel like she might
Mike, do you know what's aggravating is they could have done that. It would have taken 20 seconds to do that in this episode. We just needed like one line of dialogue or one look on Bella Ramsey's face about, a look of consternation or of her refocused on the mission of at hand.
Well,
it wouldn't have taken much, and they did kind of just sidestep it.
And that's why, again, I acknowledge that this can be considered a nitpick. This might not ruin the show or anything, but all these nitpicks have been happening each episode for me, and it's like eventually I got to see the payoff for all of this to make it make sense.
And I think this next episode is going to be it, because we encounter someone very specific in this episode, and Ellie does a very specific thing to this someone, which is the first someone.
It's a good way to put it.
I mean, I gotta say, I can't spoil the whole thing, but it's the first someone, and I think, remember, it's gonna be the first person, and I think that's important, because when you think about it, it's not till the first that you consider it possible. Once she considers it possible, why would she stop?
In one of the trailers for the season, we see Joel and Ellie in the Space Museum. It's in the trailer.
Yep.
It's a scene in the game. It's a flashback scene that occurs after Joel's death. So I think we can presume that we're at least getting that flashback in an upcoming episode.
Yes.
So we're whittling down our 3 episodes where we can see Ellie on this path of darkness to make this story work. But we know at least a portion of that time is going to be cut out for flashback material. So you're actually losing minutes to devote to what me and Mike want to see.
Yeah, and that's just been my biggest concern, because like the flashback, I assume that would be an entire episode personally. That just like the final send-off for Pedro Pascal, I think. That episode, to me, it is the last time you see the side of Ellie. So it's just weird that it creeps up halfway through this mission. That's all. Again,
and
I'm letting it go.
To be clear, it's not that I don't want Space Museum, because I do, and I love that bit in the game. But it's taking precious minutes away from what we need to be focused on here. So we'll see how they balance it. I'm sorry, Brandon. We hijacked your show there for 5 minutes.
No, you're fine. Yeah. You're fine. This is what I want, because I mean, we're meant to have different thoughts, and it's okay, even though Mike's wrong. Part of me hopes to be right, and if I'm wrong, I hope I still enjoy it, because I'm open to. I trust in what Craig and Neil have been cooking, and I know they use pans from Williams-Sonoma. But before we close, we got to talk about the trailer for next episode, because we're getting spores, guys. And this is, by the way, I love how they look. I love the idea that they emanate from an actual type of infected. I love that they're kind of isolated to a densely populated fungus area. Like, it doesn't appear that they're just going to start up randomly appearing in random places. Like, only specifically isolated areas that have this much fungus. Like, they look like caverns of fungus have the spores, and they look amazing. And that whole idea of it's in the air, it's like it's exciting. It's exciting. So, what do you think? You think it looks great, Robert? Am I full of it?
I think it looks very cool.
What
He's
happened?
doing the thing. What?
He's playing the trailer.
Oh, I'm seeing the trailer. I wanted to make sure I saw what I was. So is this?
Look at all the stalkers.
So are we
That's
in the
crazy.
hospital? Are we going in the hospital in this episode? Is that what's
I
happening?
think,
Or are we?
Yeah. Because remember, this is the episode where we're gonna finally encounter the someone, the first someone.
Yeah.
Oh, the floor was empty, filled with rats.
So, I mean, yeah, obviously it's one of the most memorable parts of the game. This should be the episode that, I mean, it is a horror show, and this should be the most horrific episode of this horror show.
Yep.
And I'm a horror fan, and this is probably the episode where Ellie passes the point of no return. I think we can say that.
Yep.
So I'm highly looking forward to it. I think it's going to fix some of our problems we had with this episode. I mean, I can't wait till Sunday night every week anyway. So
yeah, so we're gonna enjoy it,
and
of course we're always gonna come back for more anyway. But this is why we have these conversations. I mean, I love digesting these episodes and chatting with y'all, even if Mike is just a voice in the void. Look at us, we're Seraphites. So now when I think about Mike, I just feel his love. That's weird. But I don't know, man. It was right there. That's what she said. So I think we've done the thing, Robert. We've done the thing.
I missed doing the thing last week. I was happy to do the thing this week.
Yes. So excited. Guys, if you love what we do here at the Shatter After and on Beyond the Clickers, make sure you click on that like button. Click on that subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes of the Shatter After as we talk movies, shows, games, whatever we decide to cover on the show, and to not miss any episodes of Beyond the Clickers, our official Last of Us podcast. Make sure you share your friends so other people that love The Last of Us can listen to us ramble about why it isn't a perfect show, but it is at the same time. It's weird. It's a great show. But these great conversations are here, and we want to share our thoughts with you. If you have your own thoughts and controversial opinions of The Last of Us, let us know in the comments. And if we see interesting comments, we'll read it out on the next episode. Yeah, I'm giving myself a task. That's why I'm always late. But Robert, if people wanted to find you, where can they find you, man?
You know what? Just Google my full name, Robert Brian Taylor. That's my byline. If you Google it, all my stuff is going to come up. All my work at Collider, all my work elsewhere. You can find me on Blue Sky. It's right there on the screen. That's mostly where I interact with people. But yeah, if you Google Robert Brian Taylor, all kinds of fun ways to get a hold of me will pop up or to read my work.
Voice in the void. Do you want people to find you?
If I'm in the void, do I want to be found?
You have to go to the void. You have to go on your own path of darkness into the void.
You keep popping out, so I don't know what you really want to do.
You know, I'm not going to spoil Thunderbolt's asterisk for you, Brandon, but it's a very relevant plot point. You can find me at Novice Cinephile pretty much everywhere, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Thread. It's the Novice Cinephile. I'm going to be on an episode of Assembled. We're going to be talking the MCU and Thunderbolts. We're also going to be on the Chatter After ranking Mission Impossible movies before Final Reckoning. And eventually I'll be on the Amateur Otaku talking more of My Hero Academia with Isaac because Vigilantes is on and it kind of rocks. So, yeah.
Now, wait, I better be in that Mission Impossible episode too, right, Mike? Yes.
For sure. I believe both of you are scheduled to be there.
Hopefully I can make it.
Yep.
No.
And I officially have a Blue Sky account because, peer pressure.
Mr.
But you can find me
hang out with the cool kids.
You can find me at Monkey D Braffy at bluesky.social. And you can find me here on Beyond the Clickers, the Shatter After, and the Amateur Otaku talking manga and anime whenever it's possible. Isaac and I are working on possibly doing a review of the movie Mononoke that just came out on Netflix. So
not the princess though, right?
Oh no, this was different. Very different.
Boy.
It's problems, but we like problems. But guys, thank you for joining us again on Beyond the Clickers. You guys are awesome. Stay awesome. And as always, don't forget, endure and survive. That was weird. See you guys.